Sylvia, can you first tell us about when you found out you had cancer?
I was 13 and I was playing basketball and my legs started hurting, but it was just off and on. So then I think after a month of that, we went to see a doctor and they didn't see anything wrong. So then I just kind of kept going with it for a while. It was on and off, it would hurt. And then, so then we went to the doctor again and I think I lost like 10 pounds. So I lost a lot of weight, so then we went in to get scans, and so we found out it was most likely, it was cancer, but it was either malignant or benign, but it was probably malignant. So we went in and I got a biopsy done, and so they told me if I had a port when I woke up that I had cancer. So obviously I woke up and I had a port. So that's how I figured out that I had Ewing sarcoma.
And how old were you?
I was 13.
What is Ewing sarcoma?
Ewing sarcoma is a type of bone cancer.
Okay, what was your treatment like?
I had to do chemotherapy and radiation. So I had chemotherapy I had like 2 cycles of chemotherapy a month. So 1 week I just did 1 day of chemo, and it was a tough day of chemo, and then I had a week off, and then I had 5 days of chemo in a row. And then I also had to go in and do radiation for 2 months in Boston. But for my chemotherapy, I did it at the hospital during the day, but then when that was over, then they gave me a pump with, I think it had water and it had something to protect my liver in it, so then I could just go home.
But you also had chemo.
And then I think, and then some of the days it also had chemo and actually in the pump, and I was able to just go home with it. It was just like a bag, and it would connect to my port, and I just had a little bag with me, so I would go home, and I would get to go home and sleep at home, and then I would come in the next day with my pump and they would do it again. Or if it was just the 1 day, I would go home with the pump and then my parents would disconnect it for me, and then the next time we went to the hospital, we would just take the pump back.
So, were you scared to have the pump?
I wasn't scared to have the pump. I was actually happy that I got to have it, because they said if I didn't have it, then I would have had to stay in the hospital, and I did not want to stay in the hospital more than I had to.
Did you have any scary experiences with the pump, like it didn't work right?
Yeah, we just had one. You're supposed to kind of keep it on you or keep it very close to you, and one time I put it down, and I think I was on a stool, and I was like swiveling around on the stool, and then it disconnected from my port, but it was fine because I had the bandage on and everything, and we called and they said, okay, just come in. So we came into the hospital and they kind of fixed everything. So it wasn't too scary because it ended up being fine. Like, it wasn't a big deal.
How often did you stay overnight in the hospital?
I never stayed overnight for chemo, so that was really, really nice. I think I probably stayed inside the hospital maybe like 2.5 weeks total, just because of if I got a fever, you would have to go in, but I never had to go in for chemo.
Why did you say it was nice not to have to go into the hospital? What was the hospital like?
It's just really like, it's white and all the rooms are really small, and you're just like constantly bothered by people, and you just want to go home. Like, it's obviously not a good experience going through chemo, so it's hard when you're not even at your own house. Like, I think I wouldn't have been able to stay like as positive or like be able to go through it as well as I did if I wasn't able to go home, because I definitely had some sad days, but if I wasn't able to go home, I probably would have been even worse. And like, a lot of times I didn't even want to go in to do chemo, But like knowing I got to go home at the end of the day made it so much better. Like if I knew I was gonna have to stay in the hospital that full week, like I really would have been dreading going. So it helped a lot.
What did it feel like to go home after a day at the doctor's office?
It was really nice. Like I was so happy to go home, because I mean I didn't get to see, like I have two sisters and they had other stuff going on, so I wouldn't get to see them. But then when I got home, I was able to see them, and then also like I would want to go home and sleep, and it's like so much more comfortable to go to sleep in your own bed. Like it's hard to fall asleep in the hospital beds. They're like not nice, so it's like nice to go home and just like see your family and not have to like see all these doctors and nurses all around you.
You said you felt like you'd be more positive at home. Why is that?
Just because like you see kind of what you're working towards, like getting back home with your family and not being sick anymore. So if like you're stuck in the hospital, it feels like you're always going to be there forever. Like when you're in the hospital, it just like feels like you're stuck there, like you're all alone, you're the only one, and you're just stuck with all these people, and you forget about like all the people around you. So then when you go home, you realize that you have like your family and you have your friends and you have all those people. But when you're in the hospital, you feel really secluded. So like when you're in the hospital, you feel like it's never ending. But when you go home, you realize, okay, eventually like you do get to go home, and you do get like it will be hopefully okay. You have more hope that it'll be okay.
Why do you think more hospitals should do outpatient chemo for pediatric patients?
I think especially for pediatric patients, it's really important, just because like you more need like your family, and you need other people, especially when you're younger. I feel like you need more people to help you out because you haven't experienced as many tough things before. So it just like you haven't experienced a lot, so you don't realize that like, okay, like eventually hard things will go away. It just feels like you're stuck there forever. Like it feels like it's going to be your whole life. So I think it's really important to go home and like just like see your family and not be in the hospital.
You have a friend who had this similar diagnosis as you and had to do the traditional treatment where she was in the hospital overnight. What do you see as a difference between you and her as far as getting through the treatment?
Well, for me, I was able to go to school, so I was still treated pretty much like I obviously the teachers would make exceptions for me and everything, but I was still able to get through all of school as pretty much like a normal person. And for her, she hardly I would ever be able to go to school. Like she had a lot of difficulty with it because she wasn't able to be in school, and I had the pump, so I was able to come to school. And even when I had the pump, I was able to go in after school when no one was there and just like talk to my teachers, and they would explain things to me. And
so you went to school with the pump after school?
Yeah, I would go to school. I wouldn't go to school when everyone was there, but when everyone had left and at the end of the day, I was able to go in with my pump. So that's one of the big differences. And also I feel like she was always stuck in the hospital, so I think like I was able to keep a more like happy attitude more of the time because I was going home, so it did feel like I was gonna get out of that cycle. But for her, she was like stuck in the hospital all the time, so like I think it was harder for her.
Tell us about your sweatshirt.
Oh, so I got this sweatshirt in California for my Make-A-Wish because my Make-A-Wish was to go to the Grammys.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.